We're going to take a close look and compare in an A/B run with all the details, the Altra Timp 4 and the Mont Blanc. They're both out now. We did some of our filming along the New Hampshire coast where there were really some epic waves today, and the surfers were having a great time. Hello everybody, Sam from RoadTrailRun here. We're going to take a look at Altra's two brand new trail runners, the Timp 4 over here and the Mont Blanc. The Mont Blanc is $180, the Timp 4 is $160. They're both available now. Now, what's really interesting about both shoes is they have almost identical stack height of Altra's new EGO Max midsole foam at 30 over here and 29 for our Timp. Yet they are very different shoes, both the upper and the ride. So we're going to get into all those details. We have multi-tester reviews of both at RoadTrailRun.com. One thing I like to do is always kind of look at the brand's marketing and then evaluate the shoe based on what they say. Is it true? What's the situation? So for the Timp over here, Altra tells us it's a trail cruiser for any terrain, any trail, any ground. And I think by ground they also mean road, because I found it's really good on the road as well. So it's an all-around kind of door-to-trail and trail shoe. For our Timp, they first say all-day excursions. Also, they say it's a trail cruiser. They emphasize the lightweight, and we're an ounce lighter than the Timp, and the ultimate trail traction, I guess referring to this great light base from Vibram, light base Vibram Mega Grip. And now we're going to talk about some of the differences and the details here. So in terms of weight, the Mont Blanc is, in my US 8.5, is 9.4 ounces, 266 grams, whereas our Timp 4, same 8.5 US, is over an ounce more at 10.56, 298 grams. So where does the difference in weight come from? Because our Timp actually has a narrower platform on the ground at the heel than our Mont Blanc, about the same up front. Most of the difference, I think, is coming from the uppers. So, and the uppers are controversial. In our multi-tester review of the Mont Blanc, 2 of our 5 testers had issues with the heel hold, but I didn't, and neither did John Trivia, former U.S. mountain trail and vertical K champion, or Candace Hart, a very experienced ultra runner. So what are we thinking? Well, part of it comes down to the overall geometry of the shoe in terms of that upper hold, because our Mont Blanc is more of a rigid rocker shoe. I'll try to show you that. You can see not much flex from it. It has that Vibram light base outsole, whereas our Timp 4 with the inner flex and these drainage grooves is clearly a flexible shoe. So what we think's happening is that the 2 testers with heel hold issues are kind of levering out of the shoe because they're very pronounced forefoot strikers, and they may also have a narrow heel, while the rest of us didn't really have any issues. Well, I'm a heel striker, not sure about John. So I think what's happening is they're levering out of the shoe, while the heel counter overall, you know, there's not much of one. Over here, we don't really have much more, but we have a higher, more substantial Achilles collar, which is really making a difference. Also, we have other differences in the upper. We'll talk about those right now. We have a single debris mesh here in our Timp 4 with really cleverly done overlays, a very nicely padded thin type tongue, and a gusset. Towards the front, it's attached up towards the top, not a heavy duty gusset. Whereas in our Mont Blanc, we have a very short, less padded tongue, and it too has a gusset. So not much of a tongue, it's pretty short. So overall, when they strike up front, they're kind of levering out. I do feel the heel hold of the Timp 4 is and overall hold is superior. The mesh is more consistent. However, even though Altra tells us both of them are their standard kind of foot shape, there's clearly a bit narrower and yet more secure fit here than in the Mont Blanc, which you can see has this very soft, kind of almost rubbery feeling, but well ventilated mesh. This is clearly a wider fit despite both being a standard fit, more secure in the Timp. Now, at the midfoot, the Mont Blanc has a kind of non-stretch mesh. I find all this really well held, roomy, well held. And you can see there's no stretch in the collars at all. So what some of our testers have done, they've taken out the sock liner, and that improved fit some. And Marcel in Germany actually put extra padding because we really don't have much collar padding here. I think that would really improve it, not changing anything else. There could be kind of thicker padding all the way around. Whereas over here in our Timp, we have not only the higher collar, but we clearly have more substantial padding. Both are true to size for me, with the Timp clearly having a somewhat snugger forefoot and especially first part of the midfoot hold, with the Mont Blanc clearly kind of more relaxed in the toe box. Now, let's go and look at the outsoles a little bit. With our Mont Blanc, we have Vibram's new light base. And what that means, light base, is the base is thinner. The lugs are 3.5 millimeters. I found the grip really good everywhere. It's not a deep, soft ground grip, but on a lot of sort of the racing type trail shoes like the Hoka Zinal, we're seeing this light base. Whereas our Timp has Altra's Trail Tack outsoles, dual density, firmer at the heel, softer at the forefoot. We do have some concerns about the wear here, but the outsole always plays a key role in ride. What I did is took them out for an AB run here along the flatter coast, and I'm going to talk about the fit and the ride. And what's really, really most noticeable is the difference actually in the feel of the EGO Max midsoles between the two. They have the same energetic EGO Max foam, but I think there are some pretty significant differences in ride. Wow, it was a spectacular day along the coast for my 5-mile run at kind of an easier pace with lots of stops, of course, to take some pictures. So let's talk about the fit of our two Ultras. Clearly, even though they say it's a standard fit, as is the Timp, the Mont Blanc has a much more friendly, accommodating, yet secure front of the shoe fit. There are less differences at the very front, even though we only have some just kind of printed overlays versus the stout overlays. You know, there's not too much pressure from the upper. Fits pretty similar right at the front, but through here, it's considerably broader yet secure. I feel a bit of pressure through here. Now, this fit of the Timp, I think, is up front anyway, is more secure. There's no question about that. It just depends on what you need it for. I do think the laces here, these round laces, having a flatter lace would help with the foothold further back, even though there are no issues through here. Their mesh panel really works well. Now, when we get to the heel, as we said before, 2 of our 5 testers had issues with the heel hold and the heel security. I didn't. If you have a very narrow heel and you're a 4-foot striker on the lateral side, I think you might be in a bit of trouble here. You might try sizing down half a size, but all of the runners with those issues were prominent 4-foot strikers. I'm more of a heel striker. You have no such issues here. Very well held. You've got that more conventional heel collar. What's kind of interesting is it also has some stretch when you put it on, whereas here there's no stretch, it's all mesh. I think if it was more padded here with a bit, maybe not even with a stretch, things would hold better. I don't really have an issue with it for moderate kinds of trails. Maybe on super technical it might get dicey at speed, but after all, this is kind of a ultra focused offering from Altra. Now I'm going to go a little further and give you some thoughts about the ride. A bit more about the tongues and the mesh. Here we have considerably more padded, broader tongue than in our Mont Blanc. Let me flip them around. You can see this is a thin, short tongue. It works perfectly well. I wonder, you know, I've said maybe flatter laces would help, but I wonder if they would bite more. So that's a bit up in the air. Now look at the breathability here. You can see all those slots through the outer mesh. Up front, a little bit less so maybe, but a very, you can't quite see it, but a very thin, kind of almost plasticky, but very pliable mesh with these overlays providing the structure. Now over here, we have a more substantial heel counter. There's no question about it. Here you can see, but it's not that much. It's not. This isn't a rigid heel counter, but I think these pads here on the external area with the more conventional collar are more effective overall. I think for me anyway, this is close. I think they're just a bit thin here. If they were wider, broader, I think those folks that had issues would have far fewer issues. I do caution that if you have a narrow heel or you're a prominent kind of forefoot striker, this one might not work for you, but if you're a heel striker or mostly a heel striker or more flat landing, as I am, this should be just fine. We have, of course, gator traps on both. We have a loop up front, but none here. You can just clip them to the laces. So those are the uppers. It isn't too noisy, but how could you not film this here at Rye on the Rocks, where the surfers are out there? You can't quite see them, maybe over the top of some of those waves. This is one of the best surf breaks in the Northeast, if not the best. So let's talk about the ride of these two. Well, I am a bit surprised because while they have a 30 millimeter heel, for this guy, 30-30 and 29-29, and of course, as with any zero drop, start in on a little bit slow because it's a different experience. The Mont Blanc clearly has a softer to pressing, kind of more rebounding feeling to pressing midsole than our Timp, and I pressed underneath, and I can clearly feel that on the road. This foam here, even though it's EGO Max, supposed to be the same, has clearly more rebound effect than over here, where I found the forefoot felt a bit thin, a bit firm. Nothing wrong with it, it's really good. Remember, this is a more flexible shoe. You can see it's already flexing nicely after 3 runs, whereas our Mont Blanc has some flex, but it's also a rocker-based shoe. So you can also see the differences in geometry of the midsole here. There's all kinds of sculpting. I think this gives it a really effective roll and flex. Over here, a bit more traditional. You can see that with the 3 holes that give flex and drain, and we have the inner flex grooves, Altra has put kind of a netting similar to the Endorphin Trail, which I think helps stabilize this kind of softer foam, even though none of that here and none needed. The outsoles, of course, also I think are playing a role, what I'm feeling in the more energetic, bouncier ride. Even over here, softer foam. I think it might be kind of different, EGO Max. The foam in both, but especially here, feels not like a rubberized foam, but more like an olefin copolymer block, similar to Solomon's Energy Surge, but a bit denser here, and certainly denser over here. So we have the Vibram Mega Grip Light Base, and over here we have the Trail Tack with softer rubber up front, firmer at the rear. Here it's all the same. I run over some sand over the sidewalk, and I clearly had better grip with our Mont Blanc than I did over here with the Trail Tack softer rubber. So which would I pick? Well, pretty much, even though it's $20 more, I have no issues with that upper business that some of our testers did. Not sure I'd go on as highly technical trails, but I would definitely pick the Mont Blanc. More energetic ride for me. The front comfort is yet better. Hey, let's wrap up some conclusions. At least for me, there isn't much question. I much prefer the ride of the Mont Blanc. Not only is it softer and more energetic, maybe more olefin in the mix, but it's smoother and it's more protective, I think. And this has been on the road. Here we feel thinner at the forefoot and firmer. And by pressing, I can tell the foam here is definitely firmer than the Mont Blanc. So what the outsoles, I think, play a huge role in both of these shoes in smoothing things out for the ride. Here we have a very consistent outsole, same material, same 3.5 millimeter lugs in a really clever pattern. And here we have the dual density, kind of thicker, more coverage, I think contributing to the firmness at the heel, then softer up front, contributing, I think, to the kind of thinner feeling. And then we also have, try to show this, that our Mont Blanc is on a wider platform at the heel, about the same at the forefoot. The perspective's a little off, but that also contributes to the stability and the heel kind of feel of more cushion and the more energy from the foam. So now, some other notes here. We talked about the upper many times. I've really not had many issues, but I'm not running technical trails. I have run on trails for sure, and today roads. I did a lace lock, helped me, but it's a bit of a mystery. Either people with narrow heels, or maybe, as we found, some of our real prominent way up on the forefoot strikers are going to be on the lateral side, are going to struggle here with the fit and the heel rising. There's some tricks. You can play with the insoles, take it out. You can repad the collars, which I think need a little more. Whereas here, there's no such issue. If you're looking for that solid heel hold, and you tend to struggle with heel hold, the Timp is definitely the way to go. It has some stretch to the upper. I can show you a bit here. So it kind of stretches on. These outer bumpers really lock you in. It is narrower in volume, even though they say they're both standard right through here. For me, it fits a bit like the Rivera, Road Rivera, whereas here this fits, even though they say it's the standard fit, fits much more like a classic Ultra, but here this is kind of it's really neat stuff. No big toe bumper, just holds the foot really well and very softly, really comfortable toe box. Whereas here we got a more substantial bumper. You can see it's firm, also very comfortable, but a bit narrower through here for me. So as I said, we got the multi-tester written reviews. They're both great choices from Ultra. My pick is the Mont Blanc. I know I can use it on the road. It's about the best road shoe from Ultra I've run a long time. Much prefer it to the, for example, the Rivera, which feels kind of thin and low. It's a lower stack height. Can use it on trails. I'm sure it'll be great out in Park City, in Utah, where Ultra started. Whereas our Timp, kind of an all-around cruiser, just the way they said. Maybe a bit thinner in feel, protection in the forefoot, more secure upper, there's no question. But maybe you don't really need that. In terms of the ride feel, to compare, and I'm particularly going to compare the Mont Blanc, it feels a bit like Salomon's Energy Surge, maybe a touch denser. So there's that kind of real, kind of energetic, returned, stable feeling foam. Doesn't feel like a rubberized foam where you kind of got the bouncy, such as Saucony's Power Run Plus. And over here, actually, the Timp 4's foam feels like it has less of the olefin in the mix, more EVA. It sort of approaches a firmer Speed Goat a 4 maybe, and 5 is a bit softer than what we have here. It just doesn't have as much energy, which is kind of surprising as our Mont Blanc. But it's also very, with the wrapping here, it looks like they've used that to kind of stabilize things a bit more, and it is certainly stable, if a bit thin feeling. Maybe we don't get the foam coming out kind of the geometry in the front quite as effectively. So in terms of price, we're at 180, we're at 160, and then we've got a weight advantage big time, I think, of 30 grams or 1.1 almost 1.2 ounces for the Mont Blanc, and that was felt on the run. In terms of stack height, we got the Timp at 29 heel and forefoot. We are at 0 drop, and over here very close at 30, 1 millimeter more. Thank you very much for watching. Check out our full multi-tester written reviews of both, linked here at the end and in the description. Thank you very much for watching. And have a great run wherever your roads and trails take you.